Well, hello and welcome everyone to the Thursday product call. This is Gina Hawks, product specialist with the Alliance, and hopefully I'm using my computer audio for the webinar, so hopefully it's coming through loud and clear. If somebody has I know there are people on here that have my cell phone number. If you could send me a text just to let me know that the audio is coming in loud and clear and everybody can hear me okay. And then we'll all right, Lucero is on the ball. Thank you, Lucero. You're awesome. All right. So what I want to do today is go over a piece of the NLG illustration software that you may or may not be familiar with. And if you are familiar with it, then you might not know exactly how to use it and all the benefits that you have with it. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be kind of a little more advanced when it comes to the IULs. And what I'm going to do is go through and first you run the illustration just like you would for any of the IULs. And then we link that to another software program that's within NLG's illustration software that gives you the ability to compare the IUL and use it for savings for retirement to something like a 401k, and shows numbers side by side and really gives you a great tool to be able to use with your clients to show them just how much better the IUL performs versus something like a 401k or any other type of retirement savings vehicle. So that's what we're going to talk about. And so when I go through the actual illustration itself, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on how to do the illustration. Because I've got lots of training. We've got videos on Alliance University. Course number 299 is the NLG IUL course, and I've got a video in there of step-by-step how to run the illustrations. We've done multiple webinars like this for the Thursday product call on how to run the illustrations, and those you can all find out on the National Agents Alliance YouTube channel with the videos and the audio. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on how you do just the basic illustration, because I want to be able, I will go through it briefly, but I want to be able to get over to the Insmark software and show you how to use that software. It's very easy to use, and be able to run those comparisons that I was talking about. Because it really does a great job of comparing the IUL to other ways the client could be saving for retirement. So once you get into NLG's website, over on the left-hand side, you click on illustrations. It may have, no, it hasn't logged me out. And this takes you to your first page where you go over to the left-hand side and click on where it says new illustration. Now, I've already done the illustration that I'm going to use for today, so I'm going to click on that, and that'll get me to the same page that basically you get to if you click on new illustration, but I've already got some of that information input, so it'll save a little bit of time. So I'm going to run this on a 35-year-old male. One thing I will remind you with NLG's IUL product, they are age nearest birthday. So when you're running illustrations, I recommend putting in the birth date, not the age, because if this 35-year-old had a birthday coming up anytime in the next 6 months, we would have to run it at age 36. So it just so that you make sure you're running the right age, I recommend you put in the birth date, not just the age. And then I typically recommend running these at a standard, either non-tobacco or standard tobacco, if they use tobacco products. Even if they're super healthy, I don't recommend the Select or the Preferred or the Elite, because it's better to be very conservative and then come back and let them know, guess what? Your cash accumulation is going to be even better than we thought because you qualified for a better rate. That's always better than having to go back and say, I'm sorry, the numbers aren't going to look as good because you didn't qualify for that elite rate that we quoted it at. NLG will issue the best rate possible for the client. So it doesn't make any difference what you put on the illustration. If they qualify for the elite rate, they're going to get the elite rate. So verified standard non-tobacco, and that's really, you'll find that there's a lot of information on these pages that we don't ever change. So I'm just going through basically the information that we input: the client's first and last name, their male or female, their date of birth, and the rating class. The only time you would use this table rating or flat extra rating is if you've got a client that maybe has some health issues and you've talked to an underwriter and they said they're going to rate them like, say, a table B. So if you click that, it'll show you all the different tables, and that just helps you to do the illustration. But again, typically we don't have that. So that's the basic information. Then we go over here to the left to the death benefit and funding. And again, I know I'm going through this fast, but we've got lots of training on how to do this. Life insurance compliance test, where typically always you're going to leave that at the default of the guideline premium. The MEC avoidance, you can leave that at none, or you can, usually I will adjust the face value, because that way we know a specific premium the client wants to pay and we're searching for the face amount. This one I'm going to do at the minimum death benefit maximum accumulation. And that is just to maximize the amount that they're saving for retirement and to set the death benefit to the lowest possible based on the premium the client wants to pay, and being able to keep everything qualifying as life insurance, and to keep the costs of the life insurance as low as possible, because most of the time they don't really care about what death benefit they're getting. They just want the cash to accumulate as best as it can. And so that minimum death benefit maximum cash value, that's typically where we will start with any illustration. I'm not going to say that that's the way we want to set these up, but it's usually the first solve that I do in the software, because we've got to find a death benefit to start with. And we may increase that death benefit a little bit, but we've got to know what's the minimum that we have to have. And this is a great way to find that out, is just by doing the minimum death benefit solve. I'm going to do this one at level death benefit. I actually ran it ahead of time, option A and option B, and option A looked better. So I'm going to run it at a level death benefit. And then for the premium, again, these, you don't want to put large lump sums into these. It creates tax problems, takes away all the tax benefits. And that's the reason we're setting these policies up for retirement savings, is because of the tremendous tax benefits that you get with that. So we definitely don't want to do anything that takes away those tax benefits. And if you put in big lump sums, that will take away those tax benefits. So, you know, a few $1,000s, something like that's not a problem. But if you've got somebody that's got like $100,000 that they want to dump in the first year, yeah, that's not going to work. So just make sure, you know, you'll kind of see that when you run the illustration, but just know ahead of time. So typically we're not putting in a lump sum. I'm doing a monthly premium, and I know the premium amount that the client wants to pay. So that when you know the premium amount, which typically you will, you want to choose specify amount for the premium type. And then you will go over here and type in the premium. And I'm doing $400 a month for this person. And then typically they don't want to pay premiums for their entire life. So I will typically run them to pay the premium from, that means year 1 through age 65. So you can do the from and through. These are the years that you want to pay the premiums. And you can do that by policy year or by age, or like I'm doing here, a mixture of both. But if you want to do it by age, you have to put an A, because if I just put 1 through 65, it's going to take it through year 65, not age 65. So anytime you want to specify an age, you just need to put that A in front of it, and that will tell the software I only want to pay the premiums from the first year to age 65 and not after that. After that, we go down to the distribution. So this is where we show our loans and things like that. One of the benefits of the NLG IUL is they have the lifetime income benefit rider, which is an awesome rider. And what that rider does is it will calculate based on the cash value that the client has when they're ready to start taking income. And of course, in this illustration, it's hypothetical. We don't know exactly what the amount is going to be because we don't know what their cash value is going to be, 30, 40 years down the road when they're ready to take loans. So it takes the cash value that's in the illustration, which is a hypothetical number, and it calculates an income for the client that will last the rest of their life guaranteed. And the one thing I love about the lifetime income rider on this policy is not only does it give the client an income that they're guaranteed to have for the rest of their life and they can't outlive, it also guarantees the policy will never lapse and that it will always have at least $15,000 in death benefit left over. And here's why those things are important. So in order for the money that you loan out of your policy to be tax-free, the policy has to stay in force until you die. So you don't want to take out too much money and then the policy lapses and then you have a huge tax consequence. That is not a good scenario. So what the lifetime income benefit rider does is it calculates their lifetime income and then it guarantees the policy will never lapse, and therefore they don't have to worry about it lapsing and them having a tax consequence, which is a huge, huge benefit. Now, the second part of that I think is important is that they will guarantee that they will always have at least a $15,000 death benefit left over, regardless of how much now it could be more than that, depending on, how long they live and how much money is in the policy, but they guarantee that it'll be at least $15,000. And I think that's important because for $15,000, that will pretty much pay for their final expenses. So they'll have their final expenses taken care of and they won't have to worry about that. So I'm illustrating now. You don't have to illustrate the lifetime income benefit. You can solve for an income. If you want to specify the years that you want to take the loan out, like maybe you want to take it from age 65 to age 95, then you can do that under the solve for income. I'm going to do the lifetime income benefit. And the only thing that's different between the lifetime income benefit and the solve for income, with the solve for income, you can specify exactly what years you want to take the loan. With the lifetime income benefit rider, you can choose when they want to start the loan, but you cannot choose when it ends. They're automatically going to illustrate this showing an income through age 120. So if you try to put in here age 70 to age 90, then you're going to get an error and it won't calculate anything because it says the lifetime income benefit must be taken through maturity. So I have to change that from age 70 to M is maturity. And once I do that, then the error goes away. So that's something important to know about the lifetime income. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, well, I don't really like that. The fact that they're going to show the income to age 120. Nobody lives to age 120. And what if that's like 20 years too many? Even if they live to age 100, they've still got 20 more years of income that they're illustrating. And so that's spreading their income out over a lot of years. But what I found, when you run the numbers, you find that they're not really spreading it out to age 120. They are doing it over life expectancy. Because if you do a solve for income, like from age 65 to age 90 or 70 to 95 in this example, and then you compare that to a lifetime income that goes from age 70 to age 120, it's not a big difference in the numbers. So they're not spreading it out all the way to age 120. They are still taking into effect life expectancy, so it's not limiting the client too much in the loans that they can get. I hope that makes sense. I know that's a little bit technical, but I wanted you to understand that. So at this point, we're pretty much ready to run the illustration, make sure everything looks like we want it to. So I usually do the quick view just to make sure the loans are coming out when I want them to, the premiums getting paid when I want it to. It will also tell you up here at the top if it's going to lapse, which this one is not lapsing, and it's not a MEC, which is good because the MEC is what takes away all those tax benefits. So you want to make sure it's not lapsing and it's not a MEC. So this is all good. So it's a $407,000 death benefit because they want to pay $400 a month. And then you can see here that they stop paying premiums after age 65. And then I started the lifetime income at age 70. So that you'll see if I scroll back up, this annual income column. So 1, 2, 3, the fifth column over is their annual income. And if you scroll down there, that's when you'll start seeing the $29,206. That's how much annual income they can get per year, starting at age 70, all the way through to age 120. And in this case, you know, the death benefit, if you look over here, it never gets down to $15,000. I mean, if they live to age 91, they've still got a $67,000 death benefit. If they live to age 89, they've got a $70,000 death benefit. So this one in particular never even goes down to that $15,000. It's always more than that. So the illustration looks like I want it to. So now I'm ready to run the full illustration. And in order to use Insmark, you've got to run the full illustration. So all right, so we've got the illustration here, and I'm just going to go through and show you real quickly a couple of things that I like to point out on the illustration. Now you'll see there's a whole lot of words here that I'm scrolling through. There's a lot of stuff, legal mumbo jumbo definitions and all that fun stuff that we don't go through with the client. So usually it's about page 25 is where I start. But this is basically showing us in a more detailed format what we just looked at on that quick view. And so we're looking at, and what I like to do is I like to go down to about age 90. Again, because that's about life expectancy for most people. So let's say that this 35-year-old is super healthy, and we're going to say he's going to live to age 94. And the reason I pick age 94 is because that's where it's giving me some totals here. And I don't have to do a whole lot of math. So let's say that he lives to age 94. He's put $148,800 premium into this policy. Now, that's not all to buy insurance. A lot of that is extra money that he's putting in to save for retirement. But he puts in $148,800. And if he lives to age 94, then if you go over here, you can kind of see me moving my cursor around on the screen. Under the current illustrated rate and the planned lifetime income benefit, there's our $29,206 we saw earlier. If he lives to age 94, he has received $730,150 as lifetime income, 100% tax-free. So he put in almost $149,000. He gets out over $730,000 in 100% income tax-free, which in my book is a pretty good return on their money. And if he dies at age 94, there is also a $40,622 death benefit. This net death benefit, that means what's left over after the loan is paid back. So that's assuming they don't pay any of this $730,000 back. They take it out of the death benefit, and then what's left over is $40,622. So for this client's $148,800 that they put in the policy, they get out $730,000 while they're living, and then their family gets another $40,000 when they die. So they're getting a total of over $770,000 out of this policy, 100% income tax free. And those numbers are powerful. So I always like to take it down to around age 90, and it's somewhere where it totals these numbers. So again, I don't have to do the math. Now, let's say the client says, you know what, I don't really think I'm going to live to age 94. Nobody in my family has lived past age 80. So let's say, okay, well, let's say you live to age 84 then. Let's say you're, technological advances, all this good stuff, people are living longer. So let's say you live to age 84. You've still put the same amount of money in. You've gotten $438,000 out tax-free. So you're not getting as much in income because you died sooner. However, the death benefit is almost $193,000. So that's a, that is huge. And you're still getting, a ton of money to do almost $700,000 out of this policy if you die then. So, I kind of like to show the client those numbers because that's impressive. The other thing that I really like to show clients on the illustration is usually about page 4. And it's the little bar graph that shows the living benefits. The living benefits, NLG has awesome living benefits, but they're kind of icing on the cake. The way I look at it, the policy sells itself with those numbers we just looked at. So the living benefits, I kind of do that as an, oh, by the way, here's all these other free benefits that you get. And I really like the way they do this chart because it shows the total premiums they've paid in, the guaranteed death benefit that they have, the net death benefit that they get, which is based on the non-guaranteed interest, the indexed interest they earn, what they would have available for terminal illness, what they would have available for chronic illness, and what they would have available for critical illness or critical injury, which again, it's a visual, and I just like showing that to people and let them know, hey, all these living benefits over here, the terminal illness, the chronic illness, the critical illness, those are all free benefits that you're getting. And so it's just, again, icing on the cake. So those are kind of some of the highlights that I hit with the illustration. So let's say at this point, we are going to go back to NLG's illustration software. And we're going to get to the part that I really wanted to show you. And that's this Insmark illustration program that they have. So once you go in and you've run your illustration and it looks like you want it to look, then if you go up here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you see where it says Insmark. So when you click on Insmark, it's going to bring up this Insmark illustration system. Now, the first time you do it, you're going to have to install Insmark on your computer. Mine's already installed, so I didn't go through all the prompts, but just know the first time you do it, when you click on Insmark up here, you're going to get a pop-up to download the software and save the software to your PC. So this is something that you have to do on a computer. This is not something you can do it on a tablet if you could save it to your tablet, but like a phone or something, you're not going to be able to do the Insmark on the phone because it is a software program that has to be downloaded. So once you have that downloaded, then you're going to get the Insmark screen that comes up first, and all you have to do is click on where it says Insmark illustration system, and that's going to take us into the Insmark software. Now you'll see on here what company do you want to list. Obviously, this is in National Life Group's software, so they're not going to let you illustrate other insurance companies. So you just click on OK for National Life. And then we're getting into, if you want to kind of take some notes here of the steps, because there's a lot of information in this software program, but again, there's very few things that we use. So typically what you're going to do is use the last client workbook. So that would be the last illustration that you just did. If you wanted to go back and you had other clients saved, then you can go back and choose a different client, and it's going to bring up your client list from your NLG software, whichever ones you've saved in there, and you'd be able to choose another client. But we're just going to go with the one that we just illustrated. And so we're going to use the last client workbook, and then we're simply going to click on OK. And that's going to bring us into some input information. So again, these are some different ones, that I've done, but here's the last one that I did, this proposal number 3. I don't have them named. You can go in and name them so you can keep track. But remember, we had a $407,000 death benefit over here, so we know this is the right client. Then what we're going to do here, once you have the client highlighted that you want to use, you're going to click on New. And once you click on New, that's what gets you into really the Insmark software to go in and show a comparison of Insmark, of a 401k or something like that to your IUL. So and like I said, there are different things that in here that you can use. Quite frankly, I've never used any of them except for the other investments versus your policy. I'm sure these other ones, I just have not had the time to go in and kind of play with them. I'm sure they're awesome, can show you some other awesome things. But what we're usually talking to clients about when we're talking to them about an IUL, what we're usually doing is we are talking to them about using an IUL to save for retirement versus something like an IRA or a 401k or a 403b or any of that stuff. So this is typically how we're doing it. So that's why we choose the other investments versus your policy. And that's the default. Now, I don't remember if I saved that as the default, but I think it automatically defaults to that because that's what most people use. So once you've got that selected, other investments versus your policy, then you want to click on OK, I believe. All right. So now it gets you, so after you click on OK, then it's going to ask you some questions. This first page, again, I don't really change a lot on the basic data tab. You could go in here and change the tax brackets if you wanted to. I'll show you where this 28% tax bracket, where that calculation comes into the illustration that we're going to look at, so you'll know, what you might want to put there. But that would be about the only thing on this page that I would change, would be possibly the tax bracket. But I'm going to leave that at 28%. The investment details, when you click on this investment details tab, that's what kind of really gets you into, and again, there's a lot of information on this page, but you'll see a lot of it is grayed out. So it's not even stuff that you can choose, but that will change as you change different options on here. But what I'll typically do is you've got a selection of what you want to compare it to. And because a lot of times we're comparing them to a 401k, I'll just choose the side fund, and I'll tell you what that means by the side fund. But as you can see, you can compare it to different things. But I use a side fund, and then you could name it over here whatever you wanted. So if it's a 401k, if it's a 403b, if it's a brokerage account, you can type, this is just a blank field. So if you wanted to change it to 403b, you could do that. Whatever you want to put in there, you can name it. It just kind of helps when you see the output, it'll compare it to the 403b. Now, here is what is important, is the yield. So what this means is what return, as far as interest, do you want to illustrate on the side fund? So in this example, we're saying the client has a 403b, and I'm going to leave the yield at, I'm going to put it at 7%. No, I'll leave it at 8%. We'll come back and change it to 7% later. But you can put this at whatever you want. So we are going to give the 403b, we're going to give it an unfair advantage. And you may be like, well, why are we giving it an unfair advantage? We want the IUL to look good. Well, just wait. So we're giving it an unfair advantage. We're going to say that this 403b that the client has, we're going to assume that they get an average 8% return. So this has nothing to do with the IUL, because we're talking about the other investment that we're comparing it to. Now, I will say this. because we don't like to say the word of investment a lot, because we are not investment advisors and we're not registered to advise people about their investments unless you have that license, which most of you probably do not, and you don't need it. And I love what I heard an agent say one time in a hotspot is he tells his clients, I don't have a license to sell you anything that you can lose money in. Because we don't sell investments. So I will tell you, you do have to be careful. You cannot, because you're not a registered investment advisor, you cannot tell your client you need to stop putting money in your 403B and put it in this IUL. You can't do that. That's illegal because you don't hold the license to advise them on their investments. However, what you can do is point out differences, which is what we're going to do here. And we show them the differences, and then they make the determination of, am I going to keep putting money in my 403B, or am I going to start putting some money in this IUL? So just be careful there. Don't give investment advice if you're not licensed to do that. But what we're doing here is we're going to assume that their 403B is going to make an 8% return. Now, there are even investment fees down here. So again, you can change these. And so the sales charge and the management fees, so it's a total of about 4%, and that's pretty standard with an investment. Between the fees that the brokers and, even within 401ks and 403Bs, there are fees. People don't always know about those or understand those, but there are fees. So we've got some fees in here as well, which is realistic. And again, you can change these if you wanted to do a 2% sales charge and 1% sales fee. That'd be fine. You could change them to 0 if you want to. But again, we're giving the 403B an unfair advantage. So that's really all of the information that you need to input. So choose what you want to compare it to. Like I said, I typically do the side fund. Name it whatever you want. Put in whatever yield you want. And then you can change the sales charges if you want. Once you've got all of that information input, all you've got to do is go over here and click on the button that says preview. And it's going to calculate some things for you. Now, so there's, again, a lot of verbal mumbo jumbo, just like the illustration. So you can see this is 13 pages long. I am not going to go through all 13 pages, just like I did not go through all 42 pages of the illustration. And another thing that's a little odd with how Insmark works is you'll see you scroll down to here, and this is only the first page. So to go to the next page, you have to go to the top of the screen here where you see these previous page, next page, and you have to click on next page. And again, it's going to tell you, again, a lot of verbal stuff. I usually go to page 4 to 5, depending on the age of the client. So here's the real, meat and potatoes of what we're trying to get to. So we've got our side fund here versus the Flex Life 2 IUL. And we can see that this is a 403B yielding 8%. That's what the numbers on this side of the screen are representing. And I've never seen it do this, but the numbers are a little off. This Flex Life 2 should be over here, over top of where it says Flex Life 2. But you can see this is the side fund, this is Flex Life 2. Now we're assuming the 403B yields 8%. We're assuming the Flex Life 2 only yields 5.13%. So we're being pretty generous on the 403B, and we're being pretty conservative on our IUL with the Flex Life 2. But that's not a problem, as you will see from the numbers. So basically what this is doing is it's showing you the illustration, but in a different format, and it's comparing the Flex Life 2 to the Flex Life 2 to this side fund, which is their 403B. So this page, because the client's pretty young, we're just seeing the premiums going in. We're not seeing any loans coming out. So we're going to go to page 5 when you can really start seeing the benefits here. So here's what this shows. So this side fund that's earning 8% interest, we're assuming, and again, this is an after tax. Once they start taking this money out, they got to start paying tax on it because it's a 403B. And so what we're doing here is we solved for the loan, which was $29,206 a year, starting at age 70 and going through all the way to age 120. If I go to the next page, you'll see it go past age 94. So again, we see some of the same numbers we saw before, the 148.8, the 730. So the $29,206 is what we're basing this side fund on. So the after-tax cash flow, we're keeping that the same as what they're getting after tax in their life insurance policy. Now, over here, they're having to pay some tax. Over here, they're not having to pay any tax whatsoever at all. So here's what this shows. This shows they would be able to get the $29,206 a year out to age 88. And at age 89, they could get $28,352, and then they have no more money left. Versus they can get $29,206 for starting at age 70 all the way through to age 120. Okay. Oh, I told it to only illustrate 70 years. That's why it's not showing it to age 120. But you can go, I'll go back and show you where you can change that. But you can see that loan coming out all the way to age 120. So that's pretty powerful when we say we're going to give you the benefit of you're going to earn 8% interest and we're only going to earn 5.13%. So we're earning way less interest, and still it is completely outperforming the other policy. And if they died at age 75, they would have gotten the same amount of income out at that point, but then there's only $308,000 left in their 403B, 100% of which is taxable, versus a $365,762 death benefit in the life insurance policy that would go 100% tax-free to their family. So, even if they die earlier, these numbers over here, the death benefit, are looking a lot better than their account value. But the fact that they would have to, you can tell the client, okay, well, your 403B might be all right if you earn an average of 8% and you don't plan on living past age 89, then at least you'll have some retirement income. You're not going to have near as much left over for your family. Or you can put the same amount of money, because both of these have exactly the same amount of premiums going into them. You can put the same amount of money into the life insurance, get $29,206 guaranteed for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. And again, I say guaranteed. We cannot guarantee them today that in 36 years, it's going to be exactly $29,206, because again, all of these are hypothetical numbers based on hypothetical interest rates. But let's just say that this is what reality looked like. You could get $29,206 for the rest of your life. And then depending on when you die, you've got 100% tax-free death benefit that's coming out over here. So that is, that's pretty impressive. I think. I hope you agree. But those are kind of the pages that I look at. So, that was an 8% yield. Like I said, you could go back and you could change it to a 7% yield. And then obviously the IUL is going to look even better. But you don't have to do that, because at 8%, it still looks awesome. The other thing I wanted to show you, like I said, I told it to illustrate through year 70. You could say illustrate it through he's 35, I think. So we'll just say 100. That's not going to be accurate, but that'll get us, all the way. So 86. I was trying to think what year he'd be 100. So if you wanted to illustrate it through age 120, you could change that to age 86 instead of 70. That's why it was stopping at age 94. In there. But yeah, you could go back, you could change the yield. You just click on preview again. We're going to have it run to age 120. You're going to see the same type of information pop up. We'll go to page 3 or 4. And here we go. Now we've got a 7% versus a 5.13. And we'll go to page 5 where it's actually showing the income. and now they got to die by age 84. So if you're like, well, you really think you're going to get an 8% average return in the market with what the market's done over the last 20 years? So just to give you an example, over the last 20 years, the market's been up about 4%. So they've got to double that to get 8%. So if they're like, well, you know, maybe 8% is, let's look at 7%. Well, at 7%, they got to die by age 85 or they run out of money, versus with the IUL, they've got their same amount of income. And like I said, now we can show it going all the way to age 120 because we told it to illustrate 86 years. So I love this because I think particularly these numbers right here are pretty impressive, and people don't really think about that kind of thing. They're like, oh, I've got all this money in my 403B. Okay, fine, but let's really look at what reality looks like here. So so that kind of gives you an idea of how to use it. The software is super easy to use, and like I said, you don't input very much at all. It's mostly on this page right here, what you want to compare it to, and what it looks like. So that gives you an idea on how all that works. It's very, very easy to use the software. So I wanted to kind of go through that and give you some examples of what the numbers look like and how you can show a client side by side. Well, let's just look at a comparison. We're going to make your 403B look really good. We're going to make the IUL look really conservative, and let's just see how they compare. And then you show them the numbers, and it's very, very impressive. So I'm going to check the chat and see. I don't think we have a little extra time. So if you do have some questions, you can type them in the chat box. One thing that I do want to mention is you are going to see some changes coming up on NLG and F&G's IUL products, because there are new mortality tables and they're required to change their products to the new mortality tables by the end of November. So you're going to see some communication coming out very soon that there's some changes in the products. With NLG, you know, the good news is people are living longer, so the new mortality tables means the premiums are less. Some things that they're changing that are good things is they're going to take their accelerated underwriting all the way up to $2 million to age 50 and $1 million to age 60. And they're going to change the chronic illness waiting period. In most states, it's 2 years. They're going to change it to 30 days. So those are some good changes that are coming up along with the mortality cost. Okay, so someone wanted to show how to import the workbook again. Okay, so close the chat. So let me just close out of Insmark and show you how to do that. Oh, I keep getting, okay. So once you launch Insmark, click on the Insmark illustration system. It's like, okay, for National Life. So here's where you import it. So again, typically you're going to do the illustration that you just ran, which is the last client workbook, but you can go in there and choose a different one if you've got other illustrations saved in your NLG software. But you just click on use last client workbook, click on OK, and that's going to get you to the screen we were looking at. Again, you just pick whichever policy you want, and then click on new, and that gets you over here to what we were looking at before. So that's that question. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to go back and forth to look at the questions. Oh, wow. Okay, so the initial investment amount was $400 a month. So that's what we did in the illustration. Okay, I'm getting some messages that you're getting an error message when you try to load Insmark. I am not technical support for Insmark, so unfortunately, I would have no idea what to tell you. Call NLG. So call NLG. They'll be able to help you with the error messages you're getting. Okay, so a couple questions about the lifetime income. Does the client have the option to pay more premiums years beyond what you put in the illustration? So like I put in the illustration, they only want to pay premiums to age 65. Could they pay them longer? The way I did this illustration, they could not pay it longer because I asked for the minimum amount of death benefit, which sets the premium to the maximum premium. Now, you don't have to do it that way, and you could build it into where they could pay it beyond, what I showed. Or if they wanted to pay to age 70, you can choose to age 70. Or if they only want to pay to age 40, you could choose to age 40. So you get to choose how long they want to pay the premiums. But if you set it up with that minimum death benefit, maximum accumulation, then that is setting it at maximum premium, and they can never put more money into it because they're already at maximum. Also, can the client ever take out more or less than the lifetime income benefit allows? They cannot take out more, they can take out less. So I shouldn't say they can't take out more. They may, I'm not 100% sure if they can even take out any more. If they do take out more, they're going to recalculate their future income and it's going to go down. But they can definitely take out less. That's not a problem. Okay. So somebody asked about the tax deferred selection, which is also an IRA or 401k. Is there any reason not to use it? No, not in particular. I think it's going to do very similar to what the side fund does. Paper app or e-app, both. So you can use paper app or e-app. So this will work on a tablet as long as, like I'm working off of a tablet right now. I'm working off of a Surface, Microsoft Surface. As long as you can download software to the tablet, then yes, it'll work. Like I don't think it'll work on an iPad because I don't know that there's going to be any way to download Insmark on an iPad. Again, I'm not the technical I'm not the technical guru here, so I could be wrong on that, but Insmark is definitely a software program that has to be downloaded. So you're not going to be, if you can't download the software, no, you're not going to be able to use it. Does FNG have anything similar? They do have something that's somewhat similar, not as, the reports don't look as good as, I don't mean the numbers don't look as good, but the reporting, the way they present it, the presentation doesn't look as good. But they do have something somewhat similar. It's not as robust, there's not as many options, but they do have something that's somewhat similar. If I do an illustration via the website, can you still use Insmark? Yes, absolutely, DJ. I never use downloaded software. So what I'm doing right now is I'm running off of the website software. I'm not running off of a downloaded version. So yes, you can run the illustration via the website and still use Insmark. That they work together perfectly. You do not have to download the NLG software to use Insmark. You only have to download the Insmark software. Okay, so somebody's asking about the death benefit in year 1 and 2 is $407,029. And if they died in those years, is that what they get? Yes, absolutely. So in the beginning, it stays at that 407,029 for a lot of years. So if they died, that's what would go to their family, 100%. and 100% tax-free. Okay, show the page again. Let me get back to that. Let me see if there's any. Can they alter when they start the lifetime payout? Yes. So the lifetime income can start anytime at age 60 or later. You cannot start lifetime income before age 60. Okay, so let me go back to the somebody wanted to see the pages again, and I think maybe I have some other. Okay, that one answered. Oh, sorry, let me get to the page that has the numbers on it. Okay, so again, the Insmark software is separate from NLG's software. So you do not have to download NLG's illustration software. You do have to download the Insmark software. So they are two separate, but the only way to get the two to link is to launch Insmark through the NLG software. So when you want to use Insmark, you want to go to the NLG software first. Typically, you're going to be doing that anyway because you're going to be running an illustration. But just in case you're going back to a client, you don't want to just open the Insmark software. You want to go into your NLG software and bring up the illustration for the client that you want to link to, then click on the Insmark icon. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let me look. I think maybe we had a question. Oh, we did have a question about the death benefit that was on there. Let me check. Some more questions are coming through the chat. Okay, so James is saying it will not work on a Mac unless you download a Windows environment for Mac. It has to be, so it's a Windows-based software. It has to be Windows 7, 8, or 10. So for those of you that are using Macs, FYI. All right, let me go through and see. I think I might have missed some questions. Okay, that's. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm just looking through the questions. There's a lot coming through just to see if I can get to some more of those and answer those. Okay, so a couple questions on what is the pre-tax and the after-tax. That, remember, I put in the 28% tax bracket. So that's basically looking at what their income would be pre-tax based on a 28% tax bracket, what the income would be pre-tax and what it would be after tax. However, it's not really looking at these numbers in this illustration because we're asking for a specific cash flow. So we're asking for the $29,206 to come out, and that is the after tax. So it is taking into account the 28%. And again, you can change this 28%. It's taking that into account, but we're not really looking at these two numbers because we're asking it specifically for the same loan amount that we're asking for the IUL, because we want to compare apples to apples here. So I hope that makes sense. Obviously, since this is after-tax cash flow, they actually have to take more than that out of their policy because we want them to have a net 29,206 after taxes, because that's what they're getting over here. Again, we're trying to do as much of a apples to apples comparison as we can. So yes, it's showing those columns, but it's not really using these numbers. It's focusing on this number over here because we're trying to get it to match how it performs compared to this number over here. So I hope that makes sense. I know a couple people ask about that. So that's what those numbers are. We got a couple more. Okay, columns 9 and 10. Oh wait, so where do you download? Download Insmark is through NLG's software. So if I can get back to, I'm trying to get back to my, so it's when you click this button up here, this is the NLG online software. So I got to it from NLG's website, went in, did an illustration. So it's this Insmark link over here. When you click on that for the very first time, that's when it's going to download the Insmark software to your computer. So that's how you download it. You just simply click there where it says Insmark. Okay, now let me go back to, had a question. Okay, so somebody wanted to know what columns 9 and 10 are. Those are just year-end surrender. So the reason you're going to see different numbers in these is because you're taking the loans out. So the surrender value, it's just taking this surrender value from the illustration itself. So all of these numbers are coming straight off of the NLG FlexLife 2 illustration. So it's just taking those numbers and then the after-tax surrender value. Again, there's no taxes on the money that they're taking out over here, but because they're taking money out, that surrender value is going down. So I hope that makes sense. Let me go and see if that answered. This is being recorded. So yes, it is being recorded. You will be able to get to it again and replay it, the video and the audio, from the National Agents Alliance YouTube channel. That's where you're going to be able to find it, is on the YouTube channel. Yes, you have to have E&O to sell any IUL policies. Is there any way to get it to display the pre-tax withdrawal amount? I don't think so. Again, I'm getting some product specific questions. I'm just not going to have time to go through all that. I want to focus here on the software. Let me go back in and see if there's a way. Let me try like a taxable investment and see what. This is just in case there's like a whole bunch of things you can put in the report. I just use the default, but if you wanted to see like a multiple 3D graphs, you would just click over here and click add to over here, and it adds to what that output is. So you can make this look very fancy. I'm not getting into all the making it look pretty. I'm just showing you kind of the nuts and bolts. And again, you don't want to give your client too much information because that is going to confuse them. But that's what this report selection shows you, all the different things that you could show in their report, and you just click on the one that you want to show, click on add, it'll add it over here. And then if you decide, okay, I don't want to add that, just click on remove and it'll take it back over here. I don't see a way to add in showing the pre-tax because this information is grayed out. You can't go in and change those. I'll try to find out and get back to you, but I do not think, somebody asked, is there a way to show the pre-tax column? I don't think there is. Can the lifetime income be added later? Yes. It's actually added to every single policy at issue because there's no cost for it. So they don't have to decide until later if they want to use it or not. So yes, it's going to be on there no matter what. Okay, I'll try to get one more question in. Okay, question. Do you have to show income to compare it, or will it show the value of the 401k if no income is shown? It will show you values, but it's not really gonna look as good if you're not comparing the income. So yes, you can do that. You don't have to show the income. You can still run the Insmark and just compare the values. But I think it's gonna be a better presentation showing the income. But no, you do not have to show the income. So you're right, you don't pay any taxes at all when you get the 29,206 from the IUL, as long as it's not a MEC and the policy doesn't lapse. Can Insmark be used with other companies? No, this is just with NLG. So the other companies that we use do not have Insmark. All right, guys, I know some other questions are going to come in, but it is 2 o'clock and I don't want to take up any more of your time. I hope this has been helpful. It was recorded, so you will be able to find it on YouTube. Just search National Agents Alliance and you'll see it. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, and I hope you have an awesome rest of the day. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.